So, it's been a while since I've featured Deadlock here on the channel, about 8 months or so to be precise. And if you're looking at this video thinking, Deadlock in 2025, I thought that game just, straight up died, or what in the liberal hell is Deadlock, then I wouldn't blame you, because this game really did disappear from the public eye overnight last year. But for context, Deadlock is Valve's next original IP, and is a take on the third-person shooter MOBA genre. It has been leaked a couple of times, but in September last year, Valve opened up to the closed testing of the game to a huge player base, and with that, it kind of popped off. The hype was pretty real, to be honest. Creators were making videos about this game left, right, and center. The game achieved a peak concurrent player count of 171,000, and I even remember Shroud coming out and saying that he thought that this was going to be the next big thing. But then you check the Steam player counts of today, and it kind of looks like something went terribly wrong with this game. But believe it or not, folks, under the guise of the game taking an absolute nosedive in popularity, it's been quietly evolving with a complete map overhaul, brand new heroes, and complete system updates that are slowly but surely turning Deadlock into a really solid experience. You see, folks, I too have been slowly but surely, somewhat silently, playing the absolute hell out of Deadlock off camera and off stream for the past 8 months. To be exact, I've accumulated 346 hours of playtime, which, as I say out loud now, might represent an opportunity to admit that I do in fact have a problem. But that's a problem for future Cammy to address that I'm sure he never will. It's been a bit of a guilty, off-camera pleasure for me. Learning more characters, learning builds, getting better at reading the macro play of a MOBA game. It's been a nice semi-degree separation from first-person shooter games while feeling somewhat familiar for me. And while I've been accumulating this literal truckload of hours, Deadlock has been evolving for the better in some big ways. So I'd figured I'd give you guys a bit of a crash course of all the major changes, and maybe, just maybe, incite some curiosity to come back and give the game another look. One thing that has taken a massive change over Deadlock's development cycle has been the map itself. And I'm not just talking about an aesthetic change here either. There's now only 3 lanes. Yep, the game now operates on a more traditional 3-lane design, which is a big difference to how the game played on its first little stint as a 4-lane design. Now, some may sit here and say that this takes some of the identity away from Deadlock, but if I'm being honest here, that very identity was actually hurting it more than it was helping it. Allow me to elaborate. You see, folks, on a 6v6 player format that Deadlock was working with, the initial laning stage saw you splitting your team up into 2 duo lanes, typically near the center of the map for easier roaming flexibility, and 2 solo lanes, typically out on the edge of the map. Now, this led to a big problem. It allowed for the winner of the solo lane to get extremely fed because you weren't sharing souls with a laning duo, and that allowed them to start roaming into ganking territory far quicker than the other lanes in question. It just kind of ended up snowballing to the point where it really felt like it was difficult to come back from. Even if the majority of the team was holding their own, one player dropping the ball on a solo lane kind of sealed the deal for everyone else, and that just wasn't fun. So yeah, it's safe to say that the new 3-lane map design not only feels better to play from a balance perspective, at least in the early stages, but I actually think it flows better too beyond the laning stage. There's less space to traverse between lanes, jungle farms feel better spaced out, it's easier to sort of, keep the action going at a decent pace. The entire experience just feels a little bit better paced by comparison, less running around and more actually being in the action. With there being only 3 lanes, if your team gets into a team fight on the other side of the map by comparison to where you are, it's a lot easier by comparison to still get into the fight quicker and offer their support, rather than just being like, sorry guys, I'm on the other side of the map, I can't help you. It's better paced for that reason. So yeah, that's been a massive change to Deadlock, but I will admit, despite it being such a major change, I would also agree in saying that if that were the only change that the game had made in 8 months, it'd feel a tad underwhelming, which is why I'm very happy to report that it isn't. Deadlock has also added 4 new heroes to its roster, being Calico, Holiday, the Magician, and Viper. To give you a brief, very high-level overview of these characters, Holiday is what happens when Jessie from Toy Story grows up, but then decides that instead of spreading joy to children through playtime, she'd rather split the heads of her enemies with a revolver. Calico settles into the roster as the crazy cat lady, both figuratively and literally. More on that in a second. The Magician is a petty fucker who can literally yoink people's ultimates from them and proceeds to hit them with the fattest Uno reverse card in gaming history. And Viper is a slippery sausage of a character whose entire shtick, if you will, is just being able to slide around on her belly as though the asphalt and concrete surfaces of this map are just constantly lubed up. Now look, all of these heroes are cool and in the right hands are absolute weapons. Except for these two. These two in the right hands are absolute cunt. Seriously, you get a game with a locked-in Calico or Viper, you better hope that they are either on your team or that you have a therapy helpline on speed dial, because you'll be needing it. Calico's entire build is all about diving someone as though they owe you money, and the amount of times I've been curb stomped by this character is just unreal. Even when I think I have the advantage and I've got a Calico dead to rights, her ultimate just throws her into shadow form and recharges all of her abilities for the ultimate reset that has me humbled quick. It's happened more times than I care to admit. Viper, on the other hand, if you thought Haze was the gun-based dive character of your worst nightmares in Deadlock, just wait for this slippery little fucker to sneak up on you. Viper players will hone in on you like a ballistic missile before doing literal laps around you with their improved slide movement tech. You know, it's almost as though their crippling DPS that the character sports wasn't enough. They also embarrass you and ride you like a merry-go-round while they mess you up. As a gun build lover in this game, I must admit that I've been having a lot of fun with Viper myself, but every time I catch myself versing one, they become my target number one. They must not get fed, they must not get souls. I need to make sure they have the worst time possible before they give me the worst time possible. But look, jokes aside guys, the game is finding new ways to add heroes to the game that all feel incredibly unique and add an extra layer to Deadlock's counterplay and synergy opportunities, with more on the way as well, which I love to see. And speaking of new opportunities for counterplay and synergy, the game's most recent update was a pretty big one as well, and was probably the catalyst that got me keen to make this video in the first place actually. That being the item shop rework. Deadlock's item shop and underlying system underwent a massive overhaul that on the surface looks like a big old visual redesign. And look, if you were to stop there and leave it at that, I mean, just look at this screen here. Look how much aura this screen drips here. Like, for comparison, here's how the item shop used to look, and here it is now. I mean, you can really get the sense that the visual style and the theme of Deadlock is really shaping up, and I'm really digging the visual design that they are going for with this game here. But that's not all. It wasn't just a visual redesign. The system also received some pretty big updates from a functionality perspective as well. A lot of items now have more upgrade paths that feed into higher level, more powerful items where the upgrade tree makes sense. So, for example, Rapid Rounds, a level 1 gun slot, can now be upgraded into either Swift Striker or Burst Fire, both having augments to your kit that mainly affect the rate of fire in some way, shape or form, but they lead on to more powerful active and passive abilities. So now, where Rapid Rounds used to be a level 1 upgrade with no upgrade tree, if you do acquire Rapid Rounds early on for a buff in the laning stage, you can then get higher level items at a discounted price in a way that it, makes sense to continue buffing a character as the game goes on. And yes, for some items this is how it always worked. There were some items that did have upgrade trees, but now this is applied to a lot more items across the board holistically, and there are more upgrade trees. It makes it far easier to create builds with progressions that flow with you through the game as it goes on, rather than having to sell item slots at a loss. And look, there's been a bunch of other changes as well to things like the game's soul economy and how the pacing of the game works, but I know I'm already pushing the relationship for the length of this video, so I'll avoid going on a tism ramble here and leave some of the details at the door. Ultimately, folks, Deadlock is not a game that you guys should be sleeping on. Yes, it's had a bit of a quieter period in the public eye, but don't let that fool you. This game is chugging along and evolving in a big way. No, the game isn't crashing player record counts or really moving to a public release window in a hurry here, but that's also okay, given that Valve are still reworking core elements of the game from the ground up. To release the game now and then opt to redesign core mechanics soon after would be like and I'm sorry to do them dirty, but it's accurate, pulling a BattleBit remastered. Your game should be releasing once you've got the core underlying principles of your game completely fleshed out, and then, you know, you make the perfectionist changes after the fact. Deadlock is still in a very early state. I would almost draw a comparison to it and the Battlefield Labs program that's running for the next Battlefield game. It's all about testing the game's core mechanics and making adjustments accordingly before it goes to the public eye. Only with Deadlock, there's no NDA to sign, so we can make these videos like this, but I'm kind of thankful for that too. Anyway folks, I will say I've been thoroughly enjoying Deadlock, so I'm hoping to bring you guys some more content from it in the near future. If you are keen on that, be sure to backhand the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all future video releases. And also leave a comment down below, what are your thoughts on Deadlock at the moment? Have you been able to try out the game? Do you think it's going to be good when you do get your hands on it? Or is this a big old Humega lol, I don't really care a whole lot for you guys? Let me know down below. But until next time folks, look after yourself, look after each other, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out guys, have a good one.